Hello everybody, Joel Logan with the Hole in the Ground Terrain. Welcome to the latest in our tutorial series of videos on caverns and mines. This video is going to cover making some really simple mine cart rails and some ladders. So the first thing we're going to do before we jump into the tutorial is go over what you need. The first thing you're going to need is a really good pair of wire cutters. These are also called diagonal cutters. I've also heard a slang term over the years calling them die cutters. You're going to need this. This actually works out a lot better than a bandsaw or scroll saw. So make sure you get you a good pair of these. Now, the next thing you're going to need, I'm going off camera to get a few things. You're going to need two types of balsa wood supplies for this project. The first thing here is a 1/16 of an inch by a 1/16 of an inch piece of wood. I think these usually come in 36-inch pieces. They're about 29 cents. They are very fragile. You're going to just be cutting out some small lengths. Get you a few of these. They don't cost a lot. And secondly, this I believe come from Hobby Lobby, but these are called craft picks. You can see here their size. These are really good and inexpensive. It's $2.99 for a pack of 750 of these. You may find different brands depending on where you go, but this is enough to cut 2 ties out of for our for our minecart ties that we're going to use. Like I said, around $2.99. They won't cost you too much. And behind me, you should see a picture of a Woodcraft Center at Hobby Lobby or Michael's or other store. Sometimes you'll have a display set up like this where you can see the different products that they carry. And lastly is going to be how we paint it. You're going to need, very simple, just some dark brown, some silver metallic, and when we wrap the project up, you're going to need some Minwax. This is usually about $5.99 or so at most stores. I like to use the shades of oak. This is also good for dipping miniatures, but we're going to dip it before it's over with to give it a really good aged and weathered look. Anyway, we're going to jump on to the video, get your supplies together, and we'll get right into the tutorial. Alright everybody, the first thing we're going to do is take some of our craft picks we were looking at earlier, and we want to cut up maybe at least 20 to 30 to start with. Now you notice there's some ends on these I've bought that are round and then pointy, and it gets a little skinnier. We're not going to use this part, so first thing we're going to do, we're going to take a ruler, and I'm going to start here at the end of the ruler. See, I'm marking it up to where my measurement starts here, and we're going to try to mark off 2 sections here that are 1.25 inches each. And for our European friends, that would probably be about 28 millimeters, somewhere around there. Now, one thing that helps me with my eye as I'm cutting and working with this stuff, I'm going to put an X on the pieces that I'm going to throw away. I typically do this a lot when I'm using my scroll saw or bandsaw. It just kind of helps me keep things in line. And notice this one's a little too skinny, so I'm actually just going to throw it away. Or I guess I could keep it for some ladders. Maybe I'll keep that to the side for when we do a ladder later on. So once again, I'm going to mark one more up to show you. This is right at 1.25 inches. I'm going to pull it down to where it lines up with the beginning of my ruler. Mark another 1.25 inches, 2 X's. Now the piece that we're cutting out here, just so you know, this is the mine track tie or the railroad tie, whatever you want to call it. The piece of wood is typically referred to as the tie. So we've got this, and now let's move on to cutting it out. I've got a little trash can over here. You'll have to ignore the trash in it. So the next thing we're going to do, we're going to take our heavy duty cutters, and let's move over here over my trash can here. You'll have to ignore some of the trash I got in it. You can see where I had a Powerade and some Mike and Ike's. So I'm going to hold it right here, and I'm going to hold it over the can so it don't fly over the room. If you're worried about safety, you may want to wear some eyeglasses. Typically, when I hold down on it, I'll close my eyes just in case it was to fly back. But you're going to want to apply a lot of pressure. And you see how clean of a snap you'll get there. And let's cut this end off of it. Now what I'll typically do when I cut the middle, I'll hold it apart like this. And by doing this, it'll keep it from flying all over the room I'm in. Now with any luck, these should be fairly even in size, you can see. Now for the sake of time, I'll show you. I have already cut up a few of these. So let's go ahead and move on to the next part. Let's move on to laying all the ties out and placing the actual rails on. So I'm going to skip ahead to that. Alright everybody, so what I've done, I want to make a piece that's about 6 inches long. So you can see here we're roughly around 6 inches in length. So I took the 16th by 16th pieces and we want to lay it out. Now notice I took a little bit of time, and all of these are spaced at around 1/4 of an inch apart, or around 8 millimeters, and I took my ruler and I pulled them back to try to make them a little bit even. So you want to take your time placing this out. And I cut the 16th inch balsa wood pieces just a little bit longer. I want it to come off just a little bit off the railroad ties, or minecart ties. If I call it railroad, forgive me. And what we're going to do, and it's up to you how wide you want to do this. Now I've got some Fat Dragon mine carts I've made. I've got one here that I kind of use for reference, and I'll try to make this where I could set the mine cart on here. Now I've scaled my mine cart down from the set it came in. So if you had a larger one, you may set the rail gauges a little wider apart. But about 5 millimeters or a little over 1/4 of an inch off the end of each tie beam, you're going to want to place them. Now, so we roundabout know where we're wanting to put it. Now, you can use a hot glue gun. A hot glue gun is pretty messy, and I've used it. So for this video, we're going to try to use Aleene's tacky glue. And let's see how good this works. So what I'm going to do, see if I can do it without lifting the rail off. And that's what I was afraid of. So I'm going to try to put a little bit of glue on each one without messing my formation up too much. And I know it's pulling it up a little bit, but that's okay. We're going to take our time and do this right. And the main advantage of using Aleene's tacky glue is it can be repositioned. The advantage of the hot glue gun is it'll dry pretty much instantaneously. You don't have to wait on it, but the disadvantage is if you don't get it centered right away when the glue's scorching hot, it's going to be stuck there and break. So my formation's got a little bit messed up, but you see I've got a little bit of glue on there to work with. So let's see if I can carefully line it back up a little bit better. Now the neat thing about your mine cart tracks is they don't have to be perfect. I'll show you some finished ones toward the end of the video. And some of them I've purposely got off so they kind of look a little more old and random. So let's try to set this on here to dry. That's pretty decent right there. I'll press down a little bit so Now it's okay if the glue bubbles a little bit around the rail because we're going to paint it anyhow. And if somebody looks at it that close, they don't need to be looking at it that close anyhow. So you're going to have a little bit of a glue bead on each one, but that's good because that's how it's going to be put together. Alright, so this is looking pretty good. Now with the magic of editing, we're going to let this dry a while, and then we'll come back and we'll show how to make a little ladder here next. Alright everybody, so as our minecart track dries, we're going to move on to some of the ladders. I want to show you now. I got the idea of this several years ago looking at some Games Workshop ladders. Using the exact same pieces, we're going to make a few ladders. Got a few of them here to show you what we're after here. This is a 1/16 inch piece with some different size pieces that we're using for our ties glued on. This is a little bit larger one here. But I wanted to show you what we're after here. Let me go off camera and put these back where I got them from. So there's nothing really elaborate. I've got some extra railroad tie pieces. I may cut these a little bit shorter so we got some randomness to the links. Cut a few of these up here. And we'll make a sample one so you can see how to do it. Overall, it's not really that hard, but it gives you some really neat looking ladders to put in your mines. Now, a modern day ladder would almost look like this, but we're not going to fool with modern day. We want it to look like it would be something crudely constructed in a mine. So what we're going to do here, I took some 1/16 inch pieces here, and we're going to put a little bit of glue on here. Now, I like to try to sometimes put these on at different angles. Let me get in the camera here so you can see what I'm talking about. Different angles look neat because it gives it kind of a worn and weathered look, like it's shifted over the years. But how you build yours is up to you. I mean, if you want them perfectly straight and at the same angle, that's fine too. Alright, so just like our minecart track, we're going to let these dry. Probably the next step is going to be to primer them, and we'll probably primer it with some black spray paint. Alright everybody, I did two things. Or actually several. I let the glue dry overnight, and I primered this black, our mine track, and our little sample ladder, and I went over it with a little bit of black acrylic paint to fill in some of the gaps, places that didn't primer that well. So the next step, I'm going to paint the wooden part brown on the ladder and the mine cart rails, and then I'll paint the rails themselves silver metallic, and we'll come back and see what that looks like. Alright everybody, nothing special about this. Painted the ties brown and painted the rails silver, so hopefully you can see this well. And on the ladder, some of these I've did some silver or copper nails, but all I did is painted a dark brown. So you can see how easy that's been up to now. Now the last step is we're going to dip it in the Minwax, and then that'll be it. Then I got a bunch of pictures of some different rail projects I've done for my mines and caverns, and that'll wrap up the video. Right, everybody, we're gonna dip what we built in Minwax. Now, word to the wise before you do this, I have ruined a lot of pants and shirts. This is permanent, so be careful with the clothes you wear. I don't know how many times my wife's fussed at me about ruining clothes. So we're going to take our small ladder here. Hopefully you can see what we're doing. And I'm going to dip the other side. Now, you can wear gloves. I usually don't wear gloves. Probably should, but now, in this case, I'm not really going to wipe any off. Sometimes with miniatures, you'll want to wipe it off with a paper towel. In this case, I'm just going to leave it because I want it to look very rustic. So hopefully you can see this. I'll show you the finished one later as it dries. Now, I don't know if I'm going to be able to get all of this one in the container here, but I'm going to try. I may have to use a Q-tip swab, which I just happen to have handy because I figured it was going to be too big. So, I'm going to wipe it down real good. And this is going to give everything a very good old, worn, weathered, and rustic look. Try to do some more on the back here. The biggest thing about this too, besides making a mess, is just letting it dry. So, going to set this down. Notice I've got it on some paper towels here. It will ruin whatever you get it on. And like I said, I can't stress enough, be careful what clothes you wear when you're dipping terrain or miniatures, because you'll really mess it up. Okay, so the next thing, we'll come back and see what it looks like once it dries. Right, everybody, here's the finished terrain pieces. These have been dipped, and I also sealed them to take a little bit of the gloss off from the Minwax. But as you can see, this process was very easy. It's just learning to get the right tools and a few inexpensive supplies. I appreciate you watching. We're going to end the video with a couple of pictures showing some of the monorails and ladders set up. Thanks and God bless. And please subscribe if you haven't already.